Right, it's been a while, but back with another video on building a Volvo C30 race car. As you can see, there's quite a few things going on since the last time you saw the car. Roll cage is all in now, and the interior is fully painted, as is the underneath of the car as well. So started putting things back together. I did do a video before this one, before I had the seat and steering and all that in, but that didn't come out properly for some reason, all corrupted since I tried to load it onto the editor, so doing another one. Seats all in, and that's fully fitted now. Mission and a half that was. This is a seat which I bought originally for the other Volvo, but it would never fit, basically because there's a central tunnel on these which is very wide, and you can't get the front of the seat in unless you cut a chunk out of it, which I've done on this one. So there's a 3 millimeter steel box there which goes inside the tunnel, and gives me enough room to get the seat mounted, so it just about fits in, which will be nice because I've been racing with a seat which is too small for me for the last 3 seasons, which is it's fine on sprint races, but got a bit painful on the 40-minute races, I must say. I'm doing at the moment is just mocking up the steering column. That was another mission and a half. If I walk around that way, then I can point out what the issues were. Right, as I've said before, this car I'm going to be running the Volvo power steering system rather than before I had a Vauxhall Corsa electric column in, and the intention was to use the Volvo steering column in here. Problem is, the end of it, rather than being back here like this one is all the way down here. All the way down here. So I don't have to run an extension from there to there, which is definitely not legal and not safe or anything else. So what I've done is I've gone back to a Corsa electric steering column, but with all the electrics pulled out of it. And this is a fixed one, whereas one I had before was adjustable, which always caused me issues as well. If I keep moving about and I didn't want it to. So this is just a very straight column, motor's all taken out, all the gearing's taken out. So, and it's a far higher quality shaft than the or column than the Volvo one anyway, because this has got proper steel bearings all the way through. There's like 5 of them I think in total, whereas the Volvo one had a plastic one there and a plastic one at the end. So I feel a lot more confident with this, and but just means I've got to make up another set of brackets because I wasn't planning on mounting this one, and so that's what I'm doing at the moment, getting all the positions and everything right, and once that's all correct, then I can tidy those brackets up, paint them, etc. And you can see I like to have the wheel quite a long way back. Well, I've got the seat a long way back anyway. I mean, it's right the way back, sort of British touring car style. That's how I like it. And I like the steering wheel Tom Ingram style, high up and quite close. That's the way I've always had race cars set up. I'm saying with karts, I always used to move my seating position as close to the wheel as I could get. I like to be close into the wheel. Don't do my road cars, but I do my race cars. Here's 2 little that bit there looks a bit weird. That is where the gearbox cables go through. I don't run a standard Volvo gear shifter, so the cables go through in a different place, so that's where they run through. And then there's a cover plate which goes over all of that to cover all that up, so it looks a lot neater. It's just generally videos going to be lots of odd little bits and bobs going on, because now all the main this is the last bit of fabrication work, so it's a matter of just putting everything back on the car now. So there'll be bits of steering column going on, suspension bits going on, things like that. So it should be sort of reasonably fast progress now. Any sort of fairly major thing left to do other than bolting bits on is the wiring. But I don't have to worry about getting every bit of that done. And I've basically got 2 deadlines. One is to get the car onto the rolling road at the end of February, which is the first deadline, and then racing sort of end of March, beginning of April. So there's lots of things. I mean, I don't even have to get the extinguisher system fitted to go on the rolling road and all sorts of bits and bobs like that. So it just has to be running and driving. So that's going to be a focus. I should have said about this cable you can see flapping around here. This is the where is it? I've remembered it. It's really that important. Yeah, that's the GPS cable that goes into the dashboard, and I have the GPS unit mounted into the little fin on the roof, which this particular car had nothing in there, but I believe it's where mobile phone stuff and that goes in the Volvo. But I just pull that off, shove a little GPS magnetic box inside there, and run the cable to the front of the car, and I have a speedometer and data logging, etc. Okay, about to start assembling the front subframe, so I thought I'd show the steering rack and everything before it goes in. This is the same steering rack I've been using for the last 4 seasons, or 3 seasons, whatever it is now, I lose count. But before I was running it in non-power mode, so I had these 2 ports blocked off, and these 2 ports were linked with a pipe, so fluid can go from that side to that side, so essentially making it into a manual rack. Because I ran an electric steering column from a Vauxhall Corsa rather than the Volvo hydraulic steering system, basically because I just wanted one less point of failure with fluids, etc. But the electric column, it was okay, but it caused a few issues, so I'm going back to the standard Volvo system. This rack is off a facelift R design model that came with 18-inch wheels, and you can tell that because it's got this little plastic thing on here which limits the amount the steering rack can move from one side to the other, because with the 18-inch wheel, standard Volvo 18-inch wheels on, without that they hit the inside of the wheel arch. That reduces the turns lock to lock from 2.8 to 2.5, I believe. To be honest, I could do with another one of those, because my wheels hit the back of my tubular lower arms, but I just have to remember not to turn full lock, not something you really do in a race car, so it's not the end of the world. Now the anti-roll bar, this is an aftermarket one. I believe it's 25mm from memory. I've been experimenting on and off with different front spring rates, different thicknesses of roll bars, etc. Last year I basically ran a completely standard roll bar. It was alright, but I preferred it when I had the car when I had this on it. I don't want to go to slightly stiffer springs this year in the front. I mean, the car handles fantastically. It's like it's on rails. To be honest, it handles a bit too well. I can never get the back end break out to get a bit of rotation going. I don't think I've ever actually had a situation in that car where I felt like it was going to let go on me or anything. I mean, my old Puma, which is extremely fast, it felt like it was going to kill me at every opportunity. But the last race I did with this car and actually crashed it at Castle Combe, it actually did feel a bit like the old Puma in that respect. It was moving around a lot, but it was bloody fast. So it's just trying to get that happy medium. So I'm going to tweak a few things this year and see how we go. One other thing, these little, you might see these washers here. Those are to raise the steering rack up slightly, which counteracts the bump steer from having the car lowered a lot more than standard. I mean, my car doesn't look that low, but that's because I run 16-inch wheels. I mean, it's on the absolute minimum allowed on the regs in terms of ground clearance. I mean, you're allowed 8 centimeters, and this is 8.1 last time I measured it. Obviously I have to remeasure it when I rebuild it, but the old one was 8.1. So can't go any lower than that without breaking the rules. Okay, that's the subframe all together with the heat shield protecting the pipes and everything on the steering rack. That's going to be fun for a one-man band, getting this lifted up and in place. And the rear subframe has pins to locate it correctly. The front subframe doesn't. You have to use this setup, which I'll show once I've got the subframe in place how these work, but you have to use these pins to lock it into the correct place while you do the bolts up. So I've got to try and figure out how I'm going to get this thing up into place on my own, but we'll see how it goes, and hopefully the next scene will be me bolting it in and not sitting in A&E. Right, that's the subframe temporarily up in place. Well, I'll say temporarily, I mean it's not moving from there because I haven't done the bolts up yet. A lot easier than I thought it was going to be. Last time I really struggled doing this, but I just put a jack under it, lifted it up, got it so it was close enough where the long bolt could catch, and then just used the bolts to lift it up. So it's all in now. Right, let's show what happens with these alignment pins. Ooh. Right, well, hopefully you can see better than I can, because I can barely see a thing on this camera, but in reality I can see quite clear, so hopefully it's coming out of the camera full screen as well. Right, so what we have here, there's a hole in the bottom of the car there, and corresponding hole in the subframe, and an open slot on the end, and that's where this comes into play. It goes up there like that, and I'm not going to do the next bit one-handed, so hang on a sec. Right, so you can see the pin put up through that hole and into the hole in the bottom, and the tang here goes in the side to hold it up, and then you can basically just tighten it like that, and we'll pull everything into position. On the other end is the same thing, but rather than a hole here, is actually a slot, so it's fixed backwards and forwards, but you can, there's a little bit of wriggle room side to side on that end, but as long as this is nice and tight because it's a taper, it fits up into the hole, so that looks fine to me. Let's see, get it more turned on it. It's not an exact science, with a millimetre or so is fine, so that looks hunky-dory to me on that end, so I'll just check the other end and then get it all tightened up. Now for all you Volvo, Ford and Mazda owners who are screaming at your screen saying you've forgotten the plates at the back, I haven't forgotten the plate which goes on here and then screws on back there. These are old bolts, the new ones haven't arrived yet, so when they do I'll swap them out because they're single use bolts, and then I'll put the plate in at that stage. Right, now the bolts are not up to full torque, but they're tight, so the subframe's held still. And the important thing now is to make sure that we actually have it correctly aligned. Have it correctly aligned. So if I loosen off a little bit, should be able to wiggle it around like that. It shouldn't be binding up anywhere, and this should be free to move in and out, which it is. If you don't have any sort of movement like that, once you've all got it tightened up, then it's obviously out of alignment because you're jamming up against the side of a hole somewhere, whereas that's nice and free. So I'll say that's all perfectly aligned, or as good as I'm going to get anyway. Okay, first job of putting the front suspension together is to get the lower arms assembled and in. As you can see, I don't use the standard pressed steel Volvo, Ford, Mazda units. I've got these tubular ones instead. They're very handy because let me adjust the caster on here, camber on there, without maxing out the top joints. The only drawback of them is really this bar should curve, because on full lock the wheel hits here, but it's not very often you do. Well, I've never done full lock on a track, but obviously moving around the paddock and moving in and out the garage I have to be careful, so I don't keep whacking this all the time. What I'm going to do this year is I'm probably going to put a bit of rubber tubing over there just so it doesn't mark anything up when it does, if it touches, but it probably will do. What I'm doing at the moment is setting everything to basically halfway, so all the adjusters are set, so everything's half. Because I've got a rolling road session before I go on track, and for a rolling road I like everything completely square and upright, no camber, no toe, nothing. Obviously when I go on track it's completely different, so everything needs resetting, so I might as well just start with everything in the middle and go from there. I'm going to put some anti-seize onto all the threads, put them in, assemble everything up and bolt it all on, so we'll come back when it's on the car so you can see what it looks like at that point. Okay, that's the lower arm bolted in. You can see how nice and easily it moves compared to something with rubber or polyurethane bushes. So I can adjust this link here for camber and this link here for caster. And one thing I didn't say was why I'm actually putting the front suspension at this stage. I would normally put it in after the engine's back in, but I've got new brake calipers and I want to make sure that everything fits and aligns properly while I've still got time to get things changed if anything is wrong. So that's why I'm doing this at the moment. I've only got to take the lower joint off to pull the knuckle forward to get the drive shaft in when the engine goes in anyway, so it's not that much of a problem putting the suspension in now. And I'm waiting on so many different parts at the moment, it's trying to find a job to actually do. Right, time to put the coilovers back in. As you can see, I use BC Racing coilovers. These are the ER model with the external reservoirs, two-way adjustable. Yeah, there are lots of better coilovers out there, but for a lot more money. What I like about these is the fact that you can get parts, every single part you can get off the shelf, nice and easy to replace. They're very easy to strip down, and you can replace the whole damper body for not much more than it costs to have some coilovers serviced, so they do the job for me. Right, let's see, coilover all bolted in, same on both sides, so nothing amazing. Next thing is to get the steering knuckles fitted. Get the thing into shot. There we go. Right, two things to note about these. First off is the actual hub itself. This isn't the standard Volvo 5x108 or Ford 5x108. This is actually a Mazda unit, so it's 5x114.3, which I believe is 5x4.5 or something like that in Imperial. Main reason I did that was for a bigger choice of wheels. So I was struggling to find lightweight wheels in smaller sizes, which is what I wanted for this car, because I originally built the previous one on 18-inch wheels, primarily because that was all that was available during COVID. I couldn't get anything else. And then when supplies became better, and I decided I wanted to go to 16-inch wheels for better gearing. I couldn't get them, so moved to the Japanese spec so I could get them. And the other thing is this on here. This is to stop the bearing from walking out the front, which is something the Focus, Mazda and Volvo, they're all prone to. Right, next step, fit the brakes. New for this year, got these middle of last year, but we've been sitting in the box since. These are Yellow Speed Racing 304mm discs, and it's basically like most of these things, it's an AP Racing caliper copy, so AP Racing pads will fit them. Last year I ran a cobbled together set of Woolwood calipers and 300mm discs just to see how well the car would perform on smaller brakes, and it was massively better than it was on the previous brakes I had, which were gigantic things, 8 pots, 355mm I think it was. I could never get any heat into them. They were just way too big for the car, whereas this size seems to be a lot better suited. So we'll get these on, and hopefully they'll do the trick. Right, so caliper and disc all mounted. Done it on both sides, but obviously you can only see one side. I'm quite impressed because I didn't need any shims at all. There's no run out, disc runs perfectly. On this side it was catching a little bit, but that was my fault because I had a little bit of paint on the mounting face when I painted the knuckles, which I'd missed, so I was chipped that off, and it's rotating perfectly. Right, bang in the middle of the right. So as you can see here, that's spinning very nicely. I'm quite impressed with that. No shims at all, which is more than I can say for any other brake kit I've fitted to this car or my Puma. Yeah, I've got to stop saying that, because I keep saying this car as though this car is the same as the one which I crashed. It's obviously not. It's a completely new car, but because it's a Volvo and it all looks the same to me, I keep calling it this car. But obviously when I say brake kits I fitted, I meant the previous car. Right, that's the steering column in. As they say, that's not going anywhere. Moves the whole car, so quite happy with that. Lots of fabrication, working out angles and everything else, but it all turns perfectly. Well, I knew it would work because it's basically the same steering column I had in the old car. I probably didn't make it clear in the last bit I filmed about this that the intention, when I found out the Volvo steering column wouldn't fit, the intention wasn't to use a Vauxhall steering column again. It was to get a proper motorsport column, but nobody in the UK had what I needed in stock. The only place I could get it was America, and I just couldn't risk it being stuck in customs for weeks on end, which has happened to me before with stuff from America. So I know the Corsa steering column works fine, so just went for one of those again. Another thing I should have filmed a bit earlier, but I got sidetracked and completely forgot, is the where the gear lever mounts. And this has thrown me a little bit, because even though these are both Volvo C30s, this area here is completely different from the old one to this one. The old one, there's another whole chunk of metal in here, which I'd built on the old car, a frame for the gear lever to mount to. I'll insert a picture here if I can find one. So the gear lever in question, let's plonk it down there, so it goes sort of roughly there, but there's nowhere sensible to mount it like that, and I've got to have lead out for the cables and all sorts, so there's a metal frame which it sits on. I've been playing around and cutting bits and making bits, and I finally got it sorted. What I've done is 3D printed. I'm going to put them, hold on a sec. I 3D printed these little standoffs with that, so you just fit over the top of the riv nuts like that. And stop again while I go and get the other bits. So I've made this plate here which mounts onto the original and gives me another set of mounting holes there, which lines up with the original plate, which then fits on there like that. So I've got tilt it around a bit. So I've got two sets of holes here, which is where the front switchboard mounts, and then there's these new holes here which go through the standoffs into the riv nuts to hold it down there, and it's shorter than the original as well. So I'll bolt all that down and show the gear lever on there, and we'll talk about the gear lever. Okay, that's the gear lever all mounted in. There's a bit of movement compared to the old car, and I think that's because it's now mounted directly to the top of the tunnel rather than to these welded on bits, which don't exist on this one but which did on the other. So I don't think it's going to be an issue because it's not a massive amount of movement. When it becomes a problem, it's a fairly easy fix. If I have time, I might do anyway. I just put a thick plate underneath there and bolt into there to clamp it all up, or even weld a plate on the bottom of it, but I don't really want to mess up the paint, so we bolt one on. But I'll see how it goes for the first test before I worry about that too much. I haven't got time to be faffing around with things which don't need to be faffed around with. Bit of a story behind this gear lever. I never intended for this gear lever to be on the previous car or this car really. I was always going to use a standard Volvo gear shift, but in 2019 I had a bit of an accident when I was loading up my old Puma car onto the trailer. I slipped and wrenched my shoulder backwards. Went to the hospital and they said just a strain, make sure you use it, don't let it stiffen up and all this. So I went racing to Silverstone with a Puma. Extremely painful all the way up there. Racing wasn't too bad because of all the adrenaline, but yeah, it went a couple of weeks and the pain wasn't going away. It was absolute agony. I could barely sleep, and I was carry on using it. I even replaced the gearbox on the Puma because it had to be done. So eventually went back to the doctors and they did a MRI scan or CT scan, whatever it is, and found out that the outer tendon had tried to pull away from the bone on the top of my shoulder, and the bone had cracked to try and go with it. And that sort of injury meant to be completely immobile, not using his shoulder for 6 weeks. And by that point, it was about 6 weeks and I'd been using it every single day. So it was a bit of a mess. So I had to start physiotherapy to try and correct those issues. But then COVID kicked in, so all the physiotherapy stopped. And the upshot is I'm left with a shoulder which has not much movement in. I can't really show it because I can't do it, but I can't move backwards from there when I'm down that sort of level. So if a gear lever's at this sort of height, I can't move my shoulder back to change gear. Whereas up here, I'm okay. I can go backwards and forwards like that, just not down here. Fortunately, my daily drive is a Transit van, which has got the gear lever up here, so I can get away with that. But that's why I have this enormous great gear lever so high up. Those in the know who see this at track say to me, but CAE don't make a shifter for a Volvo C30 2 litre, and they're quite correct, they don't. This is a shifter for a RS Turbo Mark 1, and the problem with that is all this lot on a standard Volvo shifter is over here. Everything's mirrored. It's complete reverse to this. So I had to come up with some things to get around that, which I walk over to where the gearbox is. I can show you that. There's a rather grubby gearbox sitting on the bench waiting to be stripped down. And this is the part which is, this is the part which comes with the CAE shifter kit, but you can't fit that, well you can fit it to the standard Volvo, but it'll be over here, which is fine for a Volvo gear lever, but completely wrong for their gear lever. So it involves changing this whole assembly here, which drops in, which is where all the shift mechanism is. And this shift mechanism, all this comes off of a Ford Transit Connect, and it drops straight into the MTX 75 gearbox, which is what they use as well. But it reverses everything around, so it lines up with the RS Turbo gear lever. So if it's conversion you're ever thinking of doing, then that's what you need to do. Ford Transit Connect, whatever they call these, top hat or something they call these, and you can use the CAE shifter.